Well, thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. There are a lot of corporate developments, and we'll try and talk about some of those. Remember, the US markets would be shut today, but they were open yesterday. So, first, let's take stock of the global news flow. And some positives there. One, oil prices fell more than 3% on Russian oil price cap talks. And Fed minutes indicated that Fed officials see smaller rate hikes coming soon enough. Two big positives from an Indian perspective. Asia stocks, of course, to climb amidst the Federal Reserve optimism. And unfortunately for China, the daily COVID cases rise to about 29,754, which is the most during the pandemic. It's quite unusual as to what's happening out there vis-a-vis rest of the world and arguably in India as well. If anything, you would argue that this actually augurs even better for India from a global manufacturing perspective. Just think about it. I mean, I was reading in the websites that the the capital, the place Zhengzhou, I think, where or Zhengzhou, sorry, excuse my pronunciation, my bad, but which is the place where the maximum number of iPhones are manufactured. That's under a 5-day lockdown. Now, imagine what this does to supply chains of companies around the world, and therefore, no reason to doubt why is it that India exported smartphones last quarter. It just probably seems to be a given. Nevertheless, that's the long story. The near term, the trade setup. U.S. markets were positive last night, and by the way, they're shut today, so keep that in mind. We won't be able to show this play tomorrow. The other cues, the yields have fallen 3.68 or 3.69, if I'm not wrong, 3.6 actually. Yeah, but I think it's about 3.67 or thereabouts. The dollar index 105.7, CBOE VIX at 20. It's not just India VIX. See, global volatility has just come off, and the SGX Nifty should be showing a slight positive. We've had a bit of an up move in yesterday's session as well, but this is 18,336, up about 82 odd points in the session. Now, let's take stock of the trade setup, therefore. One, with global mood is likely benign, but low volume trading likely for the next 2 days. In India, by the way, because it expired, there might be a high trading volume today. Otherwise, US market shut today, half day tomorrow. You probably expect global volumes to be a bit soft. VIX yesterday touched a 14-month low of 11.88 intraday and down about 36% from September highs. Is volatility. At some point of time, this will spike up, but for now, it's staying very, very benign. When I spoke to derivative experts, they said the expiry is not likely to have a material element of volatility today. Let's wait and watch. Maybe some VWAP-led moves, but some of these guys now say that a lot of these moves are priced in the T-1, T-2 days, really, and not really on the expiry day. The table topper list, when you look at it, continues to show PSU Banks, select defense names, and therefore you know which are the pawns to fish in if you really want to trade. A lot of people complaining, a lot of people that I talk to, batchmates who are into trading and I talk to, are getting stopped out quite frequently. They're shutting their trading books for the month or for the expiry. Somehow, I think the pawns are different, and you need to fish in the right pawns to be able to make that money. And currently, I don't think there's a better pawn than banks, BFSI maybe at large, banks in particular, and PSU Banks most particularly just doing so well. Look at yesterday's list as well of the 52-week highs, and you will see so many PSU banks. I think Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, Canara Bank, all of these were table toppers yesterday and were at trading and closed at 52-week highs. Just shows the kind of momentum that is there in these stocks. There's a listing today, Keystone Realty, though I believe by virtue of all that's happening and talked about the interest rates, real estate has kind of fallen out of favor, but it got subscribed 2 times, could list at a slight premium. Then the comparatives will start with Rustomjee or Keystone versus some of the others, and therefore it'll be interesting to see how it trades in the next few days. A bunch of very high quality listed real estate names have come off. And I was talking to Shankar Sharma of GQuant, and his opinion was that there are a bunch of regional real estate plays which are actually showing some tremendous growth. You don't need to bet on pan-India players. And viewers, just a small mention out here. Sometime last month or month before last, we spoke to 3 real estate players back to back. There was a Man Infra, which does in the eastern suburbs of Mumbai. There were a couple of others. One of them in the Navi Mumbai region, and one more. So regional small real estate players, small relative to an Oberoi or a DLF, etc., but charting out some fabulous growth paths and very confident of fairly high degree growth over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. Maybe those are the stocks that could do well. Who knows? But stocks to monitor for sure. Anyways, what about today's stocks to watch? But just remember, uh, there is an order. Kerala government has removed the turnover tax for liquor companies, and apparently, as per the analysis done by one advisory, it's a positive for United Spirits, Radico, because both have market share, own bottling, and leased units for bottling in Kerala. Uh, there is OSs, associated alcohols, etc., which might all benefit out of this simply because this was applicable for companies bottling and selling within the state, whereas companies that are bottling outside of Kerala and bringing it to the state for just for sale didn't have this tax. Now that the tax is removed, it's a positive for companies which have their own bottling units and selling in Kerala, which is why I said maybe a positive for United Spirits and Radico. So do watch out for both of these stocks in the session today. I don't have graphics for the same, but I think these stocks might have a benefit. I've before I get to my stocks to watch, I've missed out on the large acquisition that is reported by Economic Times, which is that Tata Consumer Products will acquire Bisleri for 7,000 crores. That's a really large deal, and therefore certainly something to monitor. So those are two. Now beyond that, let's get into some of the others. Um, Adani Enterprises and Adani Power and Tata Power. The Supreme Court has upheld the APTEL order on 7,000 crore transmission contract awarded by MERC to Adani Electricity Mumbai. Tata Power, remember, had challenged this order in April 2021. It's been squashed, and therefore Tata Power's plea has been squashed, and the APTEL order has been upheld. So therefore, positive for one, maybe not so positive for the other. Maybe the stocks react, and if they do, you should know why. Is of course, this is the penultimate day of the board meet at Adani Enterprises to consider some bit of fundraising. So that is to be watched out for. Then Biocon. It's entered into an agreement with European pharmaceutical company Zentiva for the commercialization of liraglutide, which is a vertically integrated complex formulation of Biocon. Maybe this stock benefits a little bit. Also, watch out for ONGC and Oil India because oil prices have declined as EU mulls Russian oil cap. Typically, when oil prices come off so much, ONGC and Oil India, especially ONGC, has had a bit of a decline. You never know. Maybe could be an interesting play here, ONGC. Now, what about volume buzzers? Well, a bunch of stocks had some fairly high degree volume action, and I've chosen 3 or 4 with purpose. So the reason why I've chosen RCF is because fertilizer stocks were up and active in trade yesterday. RCF right up there, volume 6-time average, price change about 11.65%. I just want viewers to be careful. There's a lot of chatter around these fertilizer names. They have number of times in the past flattered to deceive, gained, and then come off quite rapidly. Be mindful if you're confident about the backstory or about the fundamental possible impact out there. It's a separate thing. Otherwise, if you're putting in money just because of rumors or of trading momentum that might be there, and if you're not following charts, it might be a tough move. So be mindful of that. Then on that acquisition that Remagnesita did of refractories, that stock was up and active. Let's get that list up. Remagnesita up another. There's an error here. The percentage column is missing in the price change. But Remagnesita had volumes which are 3.7 times the average. And the other two also. No, let's stick with that. It's okay. NBCC and Global Spirits. The volume column is okay. The price column, most of these had double-digit gains except for Global Spirits, which had about a 4 or 5% gain. So, but largely these are strong volume buzzers and therefore should be monitored. Then the other pockets to watch out for: insurance sector in focus and CLSA. The note is actually not on PB FinTech. The note is on insurance sector. CLSA says it's a big change in the revised draft commission guidelines. Its proposal to remove commission caps for both life and non-life insurance. CLSA believes it will be positive for PB fintech as it substantially reduces regulatory risk for commission rates. So watch out for PB fintech. Might be active in the session today. If it is active, then you should know why it is so. So the insurance guidelines have been changed. They impact some of the insurance companies like HDFC Life, SB Life, etc. But CLSA believes, and I think even Morgan Stanley believes, that there is a positive for PB fintech as the commission norm changes don't impact it as much anymore, and therefore that could be a positive for PB fintech. So do watch out for that. Just some flows, viewers, that you should be mindful of. MK Research suggested that FI flows have been positive for the fortnight, which is the biggest fortnightly inflow in the last 1 year. Financial services sector, 1406 million, very strong inflows there from the FI side. FMCG also sees some inflows, interestingly, as do software and services, automobile and components, but small outflows seen from telecommunications, utilities, and the consumer durable sector. So these are, again, like I was saying, put your money where your mouth is, try to follow the trends, try to follow table toppers. Financial services just appear right up there. Do watch out for them. There are queries. Somebody's asked about whether Geo Financial is a big threat to NBFCs. Vasu, difficult to say. Some of these NBFCs now have brand recognition, and I think it is not that easy to outprice FMCGs in that sense. But there is a comprehensive piece of work done by my colleague Viswanath Nair and his colleague, and I think Pallavi and Jaspreet. There are a couple of stories out there on our website. You may want to kind of log in and try and see some of these. So like this is right up your sleeve, right? Vishi's done this thing, how Geo's entry could shake up the financial services sector. My personal opinion is that it's not so easy. These guys have entrenched modes. There are a lot of regulations around financial services as well, but yeah, good to monitor. Okay, somebody's asking about whether value will continue to outperform growth. I think we've seen that play out really well thus far. You might want to argue, and I think a couple of people have also spoken about this, that growth stocks have gotten beaten down so much that the stocks in that bucket, which might be promising good growth for the future, might actually find takers now. I mean, values played out really well in 2022. Might be a time for not necessarily a swap, but selectively some of the growth stocks could actually do well too. I've heard almost everybody that I've spoken to in the recent past starting to talk about so Sridhar Sivram is one name who's spoken about this, that hey, let's try and this is a time to start looking at some of the growth stocks as well. Let's see if that indeed does play out. So viewers, that's the long and short of my trade setup. Is there something else that I've missed? No, like I said, PB Fintech, OMCs, and ONGC and Oil India. PTC India results today, and yeah, China lockdowns re-emerging. So China plays could be an issue. JLR maybe could find some roadblocks if Chinese restrictions continue, because JLR sales would get impacted, and therefore Tata Motors might have a bit of an impact there. So these are things that you may clearly want to watch out for. Thanks so much for tuning in today to the Trade Setup, viewers. It's a packed day today, a bunch of conversations. Continuing with our Is Defense the New Offense theme. Midhani, SK Jha, the CMD of Midhani, comes in to talk about that. We'll talk with Pankaj Murarka of Renaissance about defense, about PSU Banks, and more. Dr. Devi Shetty of Narayan Health talks about a lot of things, I believe, including health. And then KPIT, which was up about 6% yesterday. Sachin Tikekar joins in to talk about the Renault strategic partnership that KPIT has entered into. A bunch of very interesting conversations lined up. You might want to tune in for some of those. And thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup today. Have a great day ahead.